What is going on, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of Juve from the Six. Today, we're going to flip it a little bit, and actually, I'm going to give you my opinion on what I would think would be the top 10 Juventus players of the past decade, or we'll say decade and a half. Anyways, since the Calciopoli scandal, which saw them relegated to Serie B, and then when they came back up. So, before we jump into it, I'm going to get you to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit that little bell icon so you get notified every time I post a video. But without further ado, let's jump into this. Coming in at number 10 is Carlos Teves. In 96 appearances with the club, he went on to score 50 goals and 19 assists, and this also included in his first year winning Juventus' MVP of the year, scoring 21 goals in all competitions. If I really had to change something in his 2 years with the club, it would probably be the fact that he was number 10. Number 10, and especially it was our first number 10 since Alessandro Del Piero. Number 10, honestly, is a sacred number in all of Italian soccer, not just Juventus. But when you have a player the stature of Alessandro Del Piero leaving your club and not having a number 10 for a couple years, and then all of a sudden giving it to Carlos Teves, a player who definitely wasn't going to be there for the remainder of his career, definitely wasn't going to be there for a long time, and B, definitely wasn't a building block for the future, why give that number 10, such a sacred number, to a player like Carlos Teves? Other than that, I mean, it only took him 3 months to score his first hat trick, which is pretty dang awesome. And he actually has some memorable goals in his few years with Juventus. So for that case, I put him in at number 10. Speaking of number 10s, coming in at number 9 is none other than Paulo Dybala, the countryman of Carlos Teves. The reason why I bring him in at number 9 is because he's had quite an up and down career with Juventus, a lot more ups than downs. But because of his injuries, I think that's kind of hindered what could have possibly been with Juventus, especially his year under Andrea Pirlo, where he barely got to play. I think that kind of hindered what could have possibly been for the team, but for Paulo himself. In 256 appearances up to now, he has scored 101 goals and has added 42 assists. And honestly, another cool thing about Paulo Dybala that I don't know if a lot of people know, but he was the first non-EU Juve player to score 100 goals in all competitions. And for that fact, I put him in at number 9. Coming in at number 8, and this might actually cause some little debate in the comment section, whether you oppose it or agree with it, is Cristiano Ronaldo. When you're looking at Ronaldo's rate of return, he definitely is a top 10 player within the last decade for Juventus. I mean, 101 goals in 134 appearances is pretty cool. I've touched on this multiple times before in a video actually that was released a couple weeks ago. But yeah, I think number 8 would best suit Ronaldo in this case. I mean, when you look at as a business standpoint, what he was able to do, I mean, his jerseys in his first 24 hours of being with the team sold 520,000 jerseys in his first 24 hours with the squad, which was equivalent to about 54 million in revenue, euros, by the way, for the team. And then we also saw, when you're looking at his social media, or Juventus' social media as a whole, it went, as a total, increased by 6 million followers, which is pretty cool. But I mean, a lot has changed since 2018. A lot of big moments for in a Juventus jersey. The goal against Man U in the Champions League, that hat trick in Champions League against Atletico. I mean, multiple Serie A goals that, whether or not either won it or rescued games for Juventus over the last couple years. And that's basically the reason why at number 8, I put Cristiano Ronaldo. Coming in at number 7 is Andrea Pirlo. Andrea Pirlo was a part of the big renaissance at Juventus in the decade of the 2010s, after being pretty much pushed aside at AC Milan, saying that he was done, his career was over, none other than Massimo Allegri. Juventus went in and swooped in and grabbed him for free. And as they say, the rest is history. 4 Scudettos, 2 Supercoppas, 1 Coppa Italia with Juventus, a not so great coaching year with Juventus, which I still don't blame him for. Teach their own, I guess. Andrea Pirlo, what can I say? The guy was a maestro. He controlled that midfield, was a part of the MVP midfield. That also went to the Champions League final against Barcelona. We all remember those tears that he shed after losing. I mean, I know Pirlo's a pretty emotional player, but who would have thought that a loss like that for a team that he wasn't really with for a long time meant so much. But I think it goes to prove exactly what Juventus means to him and what he means to Juventus with all the emotional standpoint that he showed wearing the black and white. So for that point exactly, that's why I put him in at number 7. Coming in at number 6 is the only player that is a homegrown talent on this list of my top 10, and that is none other than Claudio Marquisio. Claudio Marquisio went through an up and down career with Juventus. Some say he was overrated, some say he was regularly rated, and some say he should have been not rated at all. But honestly, when you look at homegrown talent, Juventus doesn't really do a big thing when it comes to growing from within. They're a purchasing club. They like to purchase players from opposing teams, especially in Italy. But honestly, 294 league appearances, 38 goals, was a part of the MVP midfield along with Andrea Pirlo from the previous number. But, I mean, what could have been if injuries didn't also hinder Claudio Marquisio? He was so versatile. He could play at every area of essentially the midfield and forward unit aside from center forward. But he spent time playing left mid, center defensive mid, attacking mid, left wing, and even right wing at points. Can't really hate him for that. For what he gave the team, for what the team gave back to him. When he retired, it was pretty emotional for a lot of reasons. Myself, I wasn't the greatest or biggest fan of Claudio Marquisio, but when he did announce his retirement, or actually even when he went to Zenit, it was kind of like a kind of thing. Good to not see him on another Serie A team. For this reason, and this reason alone, that's why he does fall in at number 6. Yeah, hopefully you guys agree. On to number 5. Now heading into the top 5 of my top 10 list. Coming in at number 5 is none other than Giorgio Quillini. Giorgio Quillini has become, honestly, in my eyes, one of the best defenders in the world, not let alone Italy. He's been with Juventus and Italy for a long time. It's kind of hard to imagine how many national games he's been with. I know this is not an international thing. We're strictly talking about Juventus, but he was with Juve during their Serie B season. You might even argue that he could be higher on this list. When I get into the 4, 3, 2, and 1, maybe you can understand why I put in a number 5, but can't complain about Quillini. He is just a workhorse. He is heart and soul of this team. They're night and day when he plays versus when he's not playing. Is coaching in his future? I'm not too sure, but he is just he has been brick wall at the back. Formed the BBC with Bonucci and Barzali, who are not on this list, but I think a lot of that had to do with the fact of Quillini. They're so successful because of Quillini and the way he was just able to dictate play from the D. And honestly, one thing that I thought that was actually pretty awesome when talking about, or when I was just kind of reading about Quillini, I just never realized this until I came across it. In all of his years with Juventus, and this is straight Juventus, and that's it, he's only ever received a straight red one time and a double yellow twice in his career. For the way he plays, that is unreal. And that's been in 432 appearances for the Bianconeri. So with that, he starts my top 5 in this top 10. Coming in at number 4 is none other than Pablo Nevid. I mean, a lot of his success came pre-Calciopoli, but I felt like a top 10 list wouldn't be complete without Pablo Nevid. Post-Calciopoli, he was with Juventus for only 2 years. Within that, I mean, he was already at that twilight, I guess, if you will, in his career. But all in all, in the broad spectrum, Pablo Nevid, what he did for Juventus, what he continues to do for Juventus, being a part of their brass, I guess, if you will. He's just awesome. Workhorse in the midfield. I mean, those tree trunks of legs just prove exactly what kind of player he was. He was definitely one of those box-to-box midfielders that Juventus misses today. I think they've probably missed it since his departure. So, I mean, with that, I do put him in at number 4, and now we head into the top 3. Coming in at number 3 is none other than David Trezeguet. I know this one, you guys might seem like, why is he in the top 3 for this? But in my personal opinion, I actually think it's worth it. This might be a little bit biased because he also was one of my favorite players when growing up, being a younger Juventino. I mean, in 81 appearances post-Calciopoli, he still did score 31 goals. Him and Del Piero were just, the way they fed off each other playing is just amazing to watch. I mean, maybe during the time of David Trezeguet and Del Piero up front, a lot more should have happened with Juventus. I mean, pre-Calciopoli, you look at the times that they made it to the Champions League final. I know Europe is just another story with this team. The fact that David Trezeguet later on in his career was still able to put in those 30-plus goals and 80-plus appearances at his age is still pretty awesome. If I could just say one thing, just that's pre-Calciopoli, kind of pre. Thank you for missing that penalty kick against Italy because, hey, wouldn't have won the World Cup that year. But anyways, for that point exactly, he comes in at number 3. 62% of his games were clean sheets. How can you not put him in the top 2? If you don't know who I'm talking about, it's obviously Gianluigi Buffon. When you're talking about goalies and this team, I don't think anybody else can ever outplay or outrank Gianluigi Buffon, which is why he comes in at number 2. I think Juventus nowadays really realize what they lost when Buffon, I guess, got older. If they could have cloned Buffon, they probably would have cloned Buffon, and then we would have just restarted this all over at the age of 21. But honestly, when no offense to Szczesny, he's never going to be a Buffon. We're not expecting him to be a Buffon, but I think the biggest thing comparing Szczesny to Buffon and why this team struggles a lot, especially defensively, is because of Szczesny's lack of Italian and his lack of leadership from the back. Because when you look at Buffon, aside from the clean sheets and all that's just what he brought to this team, is leadership. And he was captain for a reason after Del Piero left. And he might even just be the biggest loss that Juventus will ever suffer, especially when you're looking at this year and what we've seen so far in 3 games. I think this loss is definitely going to, it's going to hurt them. Buffon wasn't going to be young all the time. He wasn't going to play for Juventus all the time. But if we were able to bring in a goalie like Gigi Donnarumma, or Gigio Donnarumma, I think we would have seen a lot different development, because I think also Buffon did a lot to help Donnarumma early in his Italian career. So with that, I don't think you can argue with the fact that Buffon comes in at number 2 here, because let's be honest, there's only one other player in the past decade and a half that would be better than him. For that fact alone, Buffon. And finally, the number 1 player post-Calciopoli is none other than Simone Padoin. If you want to know why, this is why exactly. I'm just playing with you guys. Okay, so number 1, I don't even have to say his name. I'm just going to put it like this and like this alone, and I know no one will ever argue this. And I'm not even going to give you my reason, because if I had to give you a reason, then maybe you shouldn't even be a Juventus fan. But if you want a reason, just look at his numbers, look at what he did for the team, look what he did for the city of Torino. You know who I'm talking about. Coming in at number 1 is Alessandro Del Piero. Post-Calciopoli, the man was still one of our best strikers to play, even in the later stage of his career, before he left to go abroad to Australia. The man scored 72 goals in 195 appearances. And some were just huge goals. You think back to the game against Rome in the Coppa Italia, or even the final goal that he scored against Atalanta in the final game of his Juventus career. Just the goosebumps you get, like everything was just storybook with Del Piero. I know he didn't go on to have a very successful international career. Again, this isn't an international video. He's my number 1, and he's probably a lot of number 1s in the Juventino's eyes. So I really don't have to really plead my case with this one. Yeah, and that's the reason why he comes in as my number one. And that is my top 10 Post-Calciopoli player list for Juventus. If you have any comments, if you want to give me any feedback, if you want to give me your top 10, just drop them down in the comments. Get some competition going or some chatter going. Other than that, thank you very much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next video.